The loud thud of metal hitting metal reverberated through the air as Ok careened into the earth. She had been traveling through the vastness of space, exploring a space station she had stumbled upon. It had been a long journey, but she had enjoyed the sights, sounds, and knowledge she had gained from the exploration. As she left, she had thought of the next adventure she would take, and her heart had filled with excitement. But then disaster had struck. There had been a mysterious event that had caused her to lose control and crash into the earth. She had been lucky to survive the impact, but now she was stuck here until she could repair her ship, the Tardis. Ok shook her head, trying to clear the cobwebs from her mind. She had to assess the damage first before she could focus on anything else. Carefully, she stepped out of her ship and looked around. She was in the middle of a small town, in the 1960s. The town was bustling with activity, people walking to and fro, carrying on conversations and laughing. Ok was confused. She had expected to find a quiet, sleepy town, but instead it seemed to be the opposite. What was going on here? Before she could investigate further, she felt a tugging at her conscience. She had to repair her ship first if she wanted to get back to exploring. With a sigh, she stepped back into the Tardis and began looking around. The damage was worse than she had initially thought. Not only was there a massive hole in her ship, but many of the wires and circuits had been destroyed. It would take a long time to repair the damage, and she wasn't sure if she had the skills or resources to do it. Before she could think further, she heard a loud noise coming from outside. It sounded like a commotion of some kind. She stepped out of the Tardis and looked around. People were running in every direction, some screaming, some crying. And then she felt it. Fear. It hung heavy in the air, making her heart beat faster. She had to find out what was going on. She had to help. She began to run towards the source of the noise, only to find a group of people standing in front of a building. They were all shouting and pointing, their words muffled by the noise. Ok pushed her way through the crowd until she saw what all the commotion was about. An old man was standing in the doorway of the building, holding a gun and threatening to shoot anyone who came near. He was shouting and waving the gun around, making the people in the crowd even more scared. Ok knew she had to do something. She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "What's going on here?" she asked loudly, her voice echoing in the silence. The old man turned to look at her, his eyes wide with fear. He was shaking, and it was clear he was scared. "He's been going around town, threatening people," one of the bystanders said. "We don't know what he wants, but he won't leave until he gets it." Ok thought quickly. She had to get this man to give up his gun and leave peacefully. She stepped closer to him, her hands raised in a sign of peace. "Sir," she said calmly, "I can see that you're scared. But you don't have to be. No one here is going to hurt you. Please, just put the gun down, and we can talk this out." The old man looked at her, his eyes still wide with fear. But then, slowly, he began to lower the gun. He was still shaking, but he seemed to be calming down. "Thank you," Ock said, her voice still steady. Now, why don't you tell me what's going on? Why did you come here in the first place? The old man took a deep breath and began to tell his story. He had been a soldier in the war, and he had seen too many horrors. He had come to this town to find a place of peace and quiet, but instead he had been met with violence and fear. He had snapped and decided to take matters into his own hands. Ock listened carefully, her heart aching for the pain this man had endured. She knew that he needed help, not punishment. She promised him that she would do whatever she could to help him, and the old man thanked her. With the situation taken care of, Ock turned her attention back to the Tardis. She had to repair it before she could take off again. She worked for hours, fixing wires and circuits, and eventually her ship was as good as new. She stepped inside and took a deep breath. She was ready to move on to her next adventure. With a wave goodbye to the town, she took off into the stars, her heart lighter than ever.